Jim Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today. Coming to you once again from the beautiful Senior Botanical Garden in Kernersville. I hope you'll visit the garden. We'll tell you more about how to do that later on. Speaking of later on, we have our roundtable here, and they'll get into all sorts of controversial issues, so stay tuned for that. Plus some great guests and important information between now and then. So hope you'll be with us for the whole program. Starting out, it's flu season is just about upon us, and I want to ask a whole bunch of questions of our guest, who's going to focus more on pediatric infectious diseases, but I want to ask about some differences in different types of diseases anyway. Next to me, our good friend Dr. Avinash Shetty. He is Associate Dean of International Health Affairs and an expert in pediatric infectious diseases at Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. Good to have you, sir.
Good to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Sure, and you came to us from via LSU, so if they ever play Wake Forest, you'll be conflicted, won't you?
Yes,
yeah,
that's
a little
for sure.
bit. Now, what are the differences? Let's talk seriously about the fact here we are still in the throes of the pandemic and flu season almost upon us. So my question would be, what's the difference between COVID-19, the flu, and the common cold?
Yeah, so that's one of the most challenging questions which parents and healthcare providers will have to encounter. There is considerable overlap between flu and COVID, but it's important to recognize that flu is a much serious disease compared to COVID, at least in children, with the data, what we know about pediatrics. Flu killed over 180 children in the last flu season. The symptoms of influenza is very abrupt. Usually the incubation period is about a couple of days after exposure. Most kids will have high fever, there's severe myalgias, followed by the respiratory symptomatology.
So while we've been worried and focused rightly so much on COVID-19, you're saying that a real threat to a lot of infants would be the flu. And there's so many mixed messages out there about the differences and things you were talking about. Where is there one place we can go, or is there something on the internet to try to get the real scoop on this?
The good resources, one is at Brenner Children's Hospital, brennerchildrens.org, where you'll get information on COVID, as well as access to primary care pediatricians if you don't have one.
And later on, when we give the wakehealth.edu, I think you can cross over and get to Brenner's from that, I believe is right, but we'll mention it. Now, what should I do if my child is experiencing respiratory problems right now?
The first step is to contact your primary care physician. There are certain warning symptoms when you have severe flu disease or COVID disease as well. And those include shortness of breath, rapid breathing, any bluish discoloration of the lips, if there is severe vomiting and diarrhea resulting in dehydration, and if there is any confusion or altered mental status.
Now, we didn't plan on this or rehearse it, but I'm just curious, when we talk about pediatrics, and some of the warning signs and who's susceptible. We're talking about infants to what age maybe? Are we talking 12 or 11 or what we?
So flu is important to recognize that it can be very severe in young children, especially less than 2 years. It can be also a very severe disease in folks who have underlying medical illness, like diabetes or heart disease, or patients who have cancer, or they have poor immune function as well.
Can an infant 2 years old or under, I've never asked anybody this, can a baby get a flu shot?
Yes. In fact, the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that everyone over 6 months of age should get the flu shot.
Not bad for everybody to get one.
Yes. And the reason for doing that is you not only protect the children, but you're also protecting the vulnerable contacts around you, especially infants less than 6 months.
That's really good information. I'm glad you cleared that up. On screen, wakehealth.edu is the main website. I believe you can get to Brenner through that, but if not, it's brenner.org, I believe.
Yes.
So check that out, and that's where you get the real scoop, the real information that we were hearing from Dr. Shetty and much more. So thanks so much. Will you come back sometime?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Right. Thanks for being here. We'll be right back after this. All right, today, and let's talk about student loans, shall we? Why not talk with an expert if we're going to do that? And she's with us right now. Next to me is Lisa Terry, Director of Financial Management and Education for something called Financial Pathways of the Piedmont. I'm going to find out what that's all about in a second. Welcome. How you doing?
Hi, Jim. Thanks. Thank you so
Welcome to
much
the
for
garden,
having me.
our
I
home
know,
away
I
from
love it. I dressed appropriately.
That's right. Yeah, beautiful. Now, what does before we get going, just very quickly, give us a little thumbnail sketch. What does your company do? Who does it serve?
So, Financial Pathways of the Piedmont, we are a local nonprofit United Way member agency. We have been in existence since 1972. We were formerly known as Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Forsyth County, so some people may know us by that name.
Right.
But because we do so many different services, we did change our name around our 40th anniversary.
All right. People of whether they're students or parents or grandparents, a lot of people talk about the student loan situation, especially because of the pandemic. Now, what's the current status of repaying student loans given all we're going through?
So right now with federal student loans, which is different from private student loans, so if someone has a federally backed student loan through the Department of Education, they are currently in suspension or forbearance. Initially it was to extend until September, the end of September, but now it has been extended through the end of the year.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yes,
End of the
the
calendar
end of
year.
December 31st.
Is that also, because you made a reference to something I was listening when you said, but doesn't include state or what? Now, what about private loans?
No, it will not include private loans. Now, there may be special programs that they may have, but they are not covered under the umbrella for this suspension directly.
Now, let's say that the end of the year comes or it gets close. Do I have to go and recertify myself or income or whatever? I mean, what do I have to do, or do I just start making payments again?
Good question, because I also have my own student loans. So what happens is if during this pandemic you were supposed to recertify under normal conditions for your income-based payment, all of that is pretty much put on hold until after the suspensions are over. So after December 31st, in January, if we're back in business by then, everyone will go back into either recertifying their loans if they're on income-based payments. Their status will basically pick up wherever it was prior to the suspension.
Now, if I've been fortunate enough to be able to save up some money or have money to spend and want to keep making payments, will they even take them during the pandemic?
Yes, they will still take your payments. They probably stopped all auto drafts, so that can stop automatically without any direction from the borrower. But if you do choose to continue to make payments, they will accept them. And currently, right now, all of the interest is also suspended, so it's at 0% interest, which means any payments that are being made will go directly to principal.
Well, now, but you mentioned auto pay, and is that the way that I'm going to know if my student loan is, if the payments are going to be resuming? Because you said you don't know for sure. We're thinking it'll start in January, but how do I know? Do I just on my own have to go to my own bank or ask questions or see if something's been taken out or what?
Well, I always suggest that every borrower does become their own advocate to make sure that they are following up and not just going by hearsay, because we do want to make sure that all the boxes are checked. So technically what is supposed to happen is that your servicer will contact you prior to payments that will begin due again. So if it does extend until the 31st and ends, I suspect that you should hear from your servicer probably by the end of November, the 1st of December, to plan for when your next payment is due.
And very quickly, what's the situation if I get to that point and they say, okay, Jim, your payments are going to resume next week, but I don't have the money. I don't have the money to pay. Am I out of luck? Does the loan stop?
Yes, no. What you need to do is contact your servicer, because there are programs, forbearances, deferments, even income-based payments. If you're still maybe unemployed, there is going to be a hardship forbearance that would put you at zero so that you don't necessarily have a payment for the time being.
I want to put up on screen some good information here. The website that you can get for more information on is financialpaths.org. It's up on screen. And also a special shout out and thanks to the Kate B. Reynolds Charitable Trust. Good folks over there at kbr.org. We have about 10 seconds left. I know you really appreciate all the work they do. They suggested this segment, and you sort of team up with them, right?
Yes, they have been a supporter of Financial Pathways for many years back, as far as 1999, with various programs throughout the years, so we definitely appreciate KBR.
And I appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Will you come back sometime?
Sure.
All right. We'll be right back after this. Today, and last month or so, we were proud to have Dr. Bob Shackelford drop by and let us know what was going on at Randolph Community College following his great convocation speech. And this time we want to visit with somebody else from Randolph Community College who does a great job out there for so many people. He's with me right now. Albert Lassiter is Vice President of Workforce Development and Continuing Education at Randolph Community College. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. And last month, as we said, Bob talked about the core values, and he talked about a lot of things. Another thing he mentioned was a program called a Health and Wellness Coach. Well, let's remind folks, because he and I really didn't go in depth on it last month. Let's remind folks what that is, what the mission is, who it serves.
Our health coaching program trains individuals to meet with clients to help them with their overall health plan. It teaches individuals to, if you've got a chronic illness, for instance, how do you maintain medication and exercise? And you develop that program with the client. And it's primarily driven to, one, keep people out of the hospital, for instance.
Oh,
And
yeah. Keep them out of the ER especially.
Absolutely, and most of our hospitals they're got a population model now, population health model, and they're treating individuals at their home. What can we do to help individuals stay healthier, longer, and out of the hospital?
And when you train these people and take them through health and wellness coach program, I'm assuming that and I don't want to assume anything, but there must be a big demand for these types of folks that as soon as they leave you, they can get a good job, or help me on that.
Absolutely. There's 11+% growth over the next 10 years projected for health coaching. In Randolph County, we've only had 3 cohorts to go through the class. We're getting ready to start our 4th class in a couple of weeks. And we've got pharmacies within our community. We've got industries in our communities who have hired many of our health coaching graduates.
That's great. And I know you've been in industry yourself prior to coming to Randolph Community College. So the next thing I want to ask you about is probably near and dear to your heart as well. And that's the small business center that you guys have. In what ways and I know the name is pretty obvious, but in what ways would you be helping small businesses at the Small Business Center, or people who want to start a small business? Now, how does all that work?
Well, this is a free of charge to any individual in our county that wants to start a small business, and we guide them through the application process for a loan, so to speak, and navigate them through which license you need, or what the ordinance are, and a business plan, et cetera. That's the very beginning of our initial meeting with those clients.
Right, and I think we didn't rehearse this or anything, but I think I also read somewhere where you guys were expanding your basic law enforcement training as well. So
We are.
that's important in this day and age.
Very important. We were the first community college to offer de-escalation as a part of our basic law enforcement training. So you can, as a law enforcement officer, teach skills to better understand, is this person having a crisis that can be handled in a way other than having force, et cetera.
Use a firearm.
Absolutely.
Man, I just tell you how important that is, and being able, because I know that we need that right now. We need cool heads to prevail,
Yes.
and there you guys are on the front lines of trying to get these folks ready.
We are. They have a tough job, and we're just trying to give them additional tools to make their job safer and safer for all concerned.
All right, I want to put up on screen the general website, and that's www.randolph.edu. For the radio listening audience, again, that's randolph.edu. You don't have to type in community college, just randolph.edu. It'll take you all sorts of places, let you know all about the courses and the course offerings. And we could just give your home phone, but I won't do that.
Most people have it in
That's
Randolph
right.
County.
Right. Albert Lassiter, thanks for doing this, and for all you do, and especially getting people ready to get out into the workforce the right way. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thank
All
you.
right. We'll be right back. Triad Today, time to talk about conserving our land. And I can't think of a better person to help us with this topic than this gentleman who's been on the show before, and we welcome him back. Kevin Redding is Executive Director of the Piedmont Land Conservancy. Welcome back, sir.
Jim, thanks for having me.
First of all, let's remind everybody what your organization is all about very quickly, and just, for somebody who hasn't seen you on TV before, what's the mission?
Well, Piedmont Land Conservancy, we cover 9 counties in the upper Piedmont of North Carolina, and our mission's real simple. We want to preserve land for future generations to be able to enjoy.
Meaning that you want to make sure that pristine lands aren't developed, that hotels and businesses and things don't go up. And people could say, well, aren't you stopping progress? Well, no, you're being very selective to try to preserve it, right?
That's right. We only work with willing landowners that want to work with us, and our goal is just to protect the best of the best.
Now, there's something you emailed me about called, you said, Jim, ask me about peace of land. I'm sorry, P-E-A-C-E, like peace of mind, peace of land. What is that all about? What's the purpose?
We had a campaign over the last 3 years to raise about $7.9 million, and the whole goal is to protect the Crosnor School and Children's Home here in Winston-Salem. And the property is the most iconic, it's the most well-known piece of land in Winston-Salem. The tag on peace, P-E-A-C-E, is really The children have used that land for years. The old children's home, now the Krosnor School and Children's Home.
They do farming and stuff like that.
It's been a farm where they can get away from whatever troubles or trauma they may have experienced in life and enjoy nature. Same thing for the people driving down Renolda Road. They look out there and temporarily all the problems from today at the office just disappear.
Really great for the kids. I'm glad you mentioned that. The folks at Krosnor do such a good job with these kids who, as you say, have come from broken homes or not having parents or whatever, difficult situations. And it's just a real haven out there, that land, and you don't want to see it developed. You want to see it preserved, and so Krosnor's been working with you to support this effort, and I think it's great. Now, you have a lot of partnerships that you form with folks that are supporting the campaign. Tell me about partnerships.
Well, I'll start with Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation. They're a local foundation, huge interest in North Carolina.
Right.
And they really stepped up and helped us get to the number that we needed in order to complete the project back in February. Many other individuals, corporations, foundations did, and I think it reflects the property itself. It's surrounded by the Buena Vista neighborhood, the Boston Thurman neighborhood,
Right.
Arbor Acres, and downtown Winston-Salem. So,
now tell me again how far along you are in front of the goal, and how far along you are again.
well, we closed on the conservation easement, so we're a little over $7 million. We checked off the box right before the economy fell apart and all the current troubles happened. All we have left is we need to raise about $600,000 to design a trail, to build the trail, open it up to the public, so there will be a trailhead on Renolda Road and a trailhead from the Boston Thurman neighborhood that will connect crossing the property.
Well, I was getting ready to say, because there will be some people, if they misunderstand what we're saying, they say, well, why should I support this? But you're talking about public access to be able to have fun and walk around and do healthy activities on the fringe, not necessarily going in and interrupting what's going on in the children's home and their education, but using that land. So this is good for the whole community, right?
It will be a major asset to the community, and we all see the importance of getting outdoors and just going for a walk and going for a hike, and
especially now.
More than ever.
Yeah.
More than ever.
I want to do a couple things up on screen. Website, helpsavetheland.org is on screen. Helpsavetheland.org. Please go to that and contribute if you can. And a special thanks and shout out to the good folks at Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation. Kevin mentioned them. I want to mention them again, and their website is on screen, zsr.org, for all the fine work they're doing and the contributions they make throughout the area. Kevin Redding, good luck on this. Keep me posted.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.
We'll be right back. Triad Today, just about time for the roundtable. First of all, reminder to pick up your copy of Yes Weekly. It's free. It's everywhere, and it's also online. Hope you enjoy my column in there. And also a shout out again to the good folks, Adrian Rothling and all the good folks here at the Senior Botanical Garden. It's a great place to visit. Their website is on screen. You can get married out here. We're not going to do that today, but you can do that. Now to the roundtable. On my right, but always political left, Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster and journalist. Behind him, and social distance appropriately, Dave Briggs, director of High Point Theater, pays us a special visit. And rounding out the group, Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Worldwide Consulting. All right, guys, let's start out. According to a recent report, on average, CEOs now make about 320 times the salary of the workers under them, whose salaries have been sort of stagnant over the past 3 decades. Now, I know you can't regulate something in private industry and say you can only pay a CEO so much, but here's my question. Should the Labor Department establish a maximum pay gap so that every time a CEO gives himself a raise or a bonus or something, the workers get lifted up a little bit too? What do you think, Ogie?
I've never heard of that idea. It's kind of a good idea. I think it would probably get held up in court. The CEOs would just drive it through court
wouldn't like it.
endlessly. I don't think it could happen.
Mr. Briggs?
Well, I'm a free market capitalist, but most of those pay increases are by the board, not necessarily. They're not giving themselves that increase. And a lot of those pay increases are in stock options as well.
Right.
So if the company does well, they make more money. If the company does poorly, they make less money.
But that wouldn't
But
negate...
it's an incredible gap. I agree. Same thing with basketball players or football players.
All right, Keith?
Well, football players and basketball is a little different because football players are paid far less and their contracts aren't guaranteed. But in terms of workers, they need to be given more stock options for workers so that they can improve their
And
income.
I agree with that.
Interesting.
I like that.
All right, in trying to halt the spread of COVID-19, as we all know, doctors' offices take your temperature before they even let you in the room. Quickly, guys, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. I just wanted to get your opinion. Do you think all businesses for a while should be required to take your temperature before you come in there?
Sure. What's the problem with that? It takes 1 second. Big deal.
Dave,
I have no problem with them doing it, but if it is a rule, who's going to enforce it?
Keith.
It definitely needs to be enforced.
Okay. Our friend Mayor Pro Tem Dee Dee Adams, who's been on the show before, says that Winston-Salem should pay reparations to the city's black residents to compensate for slavery and racial inequities, much like Asheville has just voted on and Durham is about to vote on, I think. Guys, good idea or bad idea, Ogie?
Well, I mean, it's a good idea in theory, but where does the money come from? It's always a matter of where do you get the money to do it.
Dave.
Well, I think if that's the case, then maybe England could pay my ancestors for having been forced out due to religious persecution. I think it's an absurdity.
You think it's going too far back?
I think it's going way too far back.
Keith.
I think that we all understand that black people were brought over here during slavery, so it's a little different. But I think that reparations is something that has happened with the Jewish population, but I think it's a very difficult thing to administer, and I think it's going to be very hard, even though I think that there needs to be looked at very closely.
All right, sort of on that topic, guys, the University of Pittsburgh is now mandating an anti-racism class for all incoming freshmen. Given the racial unrest in our college, you think, in our nation, you think all colleges ought to do the same thing, Ogie?
Actually, I do. I think it's a great idea. It's very implementable in orientation, just spend an hour on anti-racism, and yeah.
What do you think, Dave Bruce?
I think a lot of colleges are already doing that. I think it's fine.
I hadn't heard of it, but maybe that Keith.
I think they should start at home. An hour of racism class is not going to stop people who were raised as racist to stop being racist.
Racists might not even show up for class. All right. Now, according to the Board of Elections, this is a weird one. According to the Board of Elections, if you go in and vote early, either by mail or in person, and you should die before Election Day on November 3rd, your vote will not be counted because you're no longer a resident on Election Day. Guys, quickly, should that law be changed, Ogie?
Yeah, when you cast your ballot, you're counted, period. Period. If you vote early, you count.
But not in North Carolina.
It's a bad rule,
Dave
bad
Briggs.
law.
If you're dead, your vote can't count unless you're in Chicago.
Well, yeah, that's right. They'll count anything in Chicago. But I really, you're serious. So you think
I am serious, yeah.
it should not count?
Should not count.
But your intention was it's a certain
That's your
person.
intention, but the election day is a specific day.
Keith.
Your vote should count, and there's enough voter suppression laws around here that's keeping people from voting that if one person passes away after casting their vote, it should count.
That's the ultimate voter suppression.
Absolutely.
All right, finally, guys, Nabisco announced that it's making Ritz cracker-flavored ice cream. This follows the company who last year made mustard-flavored ice cream. Guys, I have to ask, would you rather eat mustard-flavored ice cream or Ritz cracker-flavored ice cream? Ogie.
I eat Ritz all the time. I'm going with the Ritz.
You're going to eat that?
Yeah, I love it.
Dave Briggs.
I'm going to go with the Ritz, but I'm going to have a block of cheese with it.
Yeah, with the ice cream.
Yeah.
Keith, would you rather eat mustard ice cream or Ritz ice cream?
I don't want either one of them.
You have to pick.
If I have to pick,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I guess Ritz. I mean, it's a terrible choice. You did that on purpose.
Well, I know, but you're a food connoisseur.
I am
You
a
go all
food
over-
connoisseur,
Keith-
Keith
goes all over the world.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Eats at McDonald's in Spain.
That's right.
And,
Wendy's, all of that,
whatever.
you know.
All
Food
right, well,
connoisseur.
that's right. Well, that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. The legendary singer and Academy Award-winning actress Cher was so concerned about the possibility of mail-in ballots being delayed that she went down to her local Malibu post office to volunteer as a mail sorter. Now, the stunt must have worked because ever since then there's been a rise in early voting among gypsies, tramps, and thieves.
That's one of the best ones you did, Jim. I like that.
All of us here on Triad Today, we're going to Keith's house for some Ritz ice cream. I'm
No,
Jim
we're
Long.
not.
We'll see you next week.